Yes, the dot means to multiply it. Dot means multiply. All right, so here's your whole problem. Parentheses 2 times 3, close parentheses, to the second power. All right, got muted there for a second. So you got the parentheses, 2 times 3, the dot means times, so you don't get dots and x's confused with each other, because we will be solving for x eventually. All right, 2.3, 2 times 3, that's all in parentheses to the second power, minus 5 to the second power. So we are going to go through our order of operations again, starting with the parentheses. All right, parentheses first. So 2 times 3 is inside the parentheses. I'm going to solve that part first. 2 times 3 is 6. And it says to the second power. So I'm going to leave that second power there, minus 5 to the second power. Okay. Exponents is next. So we have to figure out what these numbers are with the exponents. 6 to the second power is 36, because it means 6 times 6, minus 5 to the second power, which is 5 times 5, is 25. And you still have to subtract both of those. Okay, notice I was able to solve both of these exponents in the same step, just because they're not touching each other, but there is a minus sign in between. So of course, 36 minus 25 will give you 11. Okay. Yes, those of you who did 11 in the chat, you are doing great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Destiny. I appreciate you showing that work on your whiteboard. All right, I see, yay, that's what you got. I see Chloe's whiteboard as well. I see a few more whiteboards. Jaden Parado, thank you so much for following along. Those of you who are practicing with us, you are going to do just fine on the more challenging problems. I think things get even trickier when we start using fractions and decimals. So I'm going to throw some more fractions and decimals in here as well. Let's go with, how about this? 3/4 times, because there's parentheses and nothing in between, 3/4 times 2 to the third power plus 4 to the second power in parentheses. Okay, I'll give you just a minute to try to work this one out on your own, and then we're going to walk through the steps together and see if you got it. All right. There are several steps here. So we're going to solve what's in the parentheses first. And what's in parentheses happens to be exponents. So we're going to simplify what's inside the parentheses first. Okay, starting to get some answers popping up here, and so far so good. 2 to the third power, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, plus 4 to the second power, or 4 times 4, which is 16. So we have 8 plus 16 now inside the parentheses. Don't forget about the 3/4 in the front of the parentheses. Okay. 8 plus 16, of course, is 24. And that's still inside parentheses because you have 3/4 touching those parentheses, which means multiply. So now we're going to multiply 3/4 times 24. Okay, 3/4 times 24. And remember multiplication with fractions. This is why I wanted you to have such a strong basis of fractions and decimals. When you multiply fractions, you can multiply it straight across and then simplify it, or you can simplify and then multiply. I personally like shortcuts, simplifying first and then multiplying. However, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to remind you that you can multiply straight across. So 3 times 24 is 72. And on the bottom, 4 times 1 is 4, which you would have to reduce by dividing 72 by 4. And that leaves you with 18. All right, final answer, 18. Yes, for those of you who got it. Kira, honest mistake. Destiny Ray, thank you so much for sharing your whiteboard with me. I appreciate that, all that work that you've shown, and you got the right answer. So congratulations. That is great. Great, great, great. That's the key, just taking it one step at a time and working through it as we go. Now, sometimes, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this one. How about 1/3 and more parentheses, 4.3, close parentheses, plus 2 to the 3rd power. There we go. Okay, try it on your own, then we'll walk through it together. And Grim, I sure hope you're writing this down. Nathan and Tiffany are, I don't see. Sophia, maybe she's back there. Oh, all right. Oh, there they are. I see them now. All right, we're getting 2 answers. Getting 2 separate answers. Let's see. One of those answers is correct. Let's see which one it is. Okay, of course, parentheses first. So I'm going to do what's inside these parentheses, which is 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 is still in parentheses, and 1/3 is outside the parentheses because 1/3 times 12. This means multiply. Okay, plus 2 to the 3rd power. Well, you could go ahead and do your exponents here, 2 to the 3rd power, or 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And you still have this 1/3 times 12 plus 8. Okay? 1/3 times 12, multiply straight across. Let's see, 1/3 times 12, or 12 over 1, equals 12 over 3, which reduces to 4. And then you still have this plus 8 that you have to bring down here. So 4 plus 8, final answer is 12. Okay. So far, so good. I didn't see the exponent. Oh, sorry about that. Exponent was to the 3rd power. Yep, there you go. Oh, honest mistake. And but if that, I suppose it wasn't there, you would have gotten it correct. All right, let's do another one. This time I'm going to throw some decimals at you because decimals we'll find also decimal. Yeah, sometimes there are decimals. And oh yeah, this is a good one. This one has decimals and fractions in it. Oh, this is going to be really, really obnoxious. Let's do it. 1/2. Oh, let me write up higher. I need more space. 1/2. There we go. 1/2 times 4 to the 2nd power minus, ooh, here's something new, a bracket, plus, and then a 2 plus parentheses, 3.6 divided by 0.9, close parentheses, and close your bracket. Okay. Write this down. Make sure you have all the numbers and all the steps. Yes, I know, Zuleika, makes your head hurt. Makes my head hurt too. These are the type of problems that are actually in your math book. If we were working from the math book, this was the first example or one of the examples you would see in your math book. So I figure we better go ahead and take it up about as far as we can go with fractions, decimals, exponents, brackets, parentheses, everything. You got the whole thing. But don't let it scare you. It's okay. We're going to break it down one step at a time. Okay? But it's okay, Angie. Yes, I know you're going to need some time on this one. This one's going to take quite a bit of time. But if we just break it down and do one step at a time, the new thing that's here are these brackets, okay? Brackets are the same thing as, they represent the same thing here as parentheses. Parentheses look like this, of course. Brackets are usually contain some parentheses inside the bracket. So we're gonna just break down this problem one step at a time. If we have to look at parentheses, this set of parentheses is inside the bracket. So bracket, it just means like a second set of parentheses, okay? Brackets are a second set of parentheses. All right, so we're gonna look inside the bracket and inside the parentheses, but parentheses is first. So this is the part I'm gonna solve first, okay? 36, or 3.6. 3.6 divided by 0.9, okay? 3.6 divided by 0.9. Okay, if you're doing this off to the side, 0.9, you have to remind yourself that you should divide only by whole numbers. So you have to move the decimal once here, move the decimal once here, and bring it above the line. Then 9 goes into 36 4 whole times, okay? So 0.9 goes into 3.6 4 whole times. I'm just going to erase this part because I want to make sure I have plenty of room for the rest, okay? So inside that parentheses now, you still have the answer of 4. 3.6 divided by 0.9 is just 4, okay? Now I'm going to do what's inside the bracket next. So, let me write this down here a little bit lower. 4, that's inside the parentheses. All right, you have 1/2 times 4 to the second power minus the bracket 2 plus, because there's a plus sign there, so 2 plus 4, and close the bracket. Okay, next step. Remember, parentheses, a bracket is like a second set of parentheses in the same problem. So we're going to look at this bracket and say, hey, 2 plus 4, 2 plus 4, that's not bad. I could do that one in my head. 2 plus 4 is 6, okay? And since that's all taken care of inside the brackets, I'm going to go ahead and bring down the rest. 1/2 times 4 to the second power, and I still have a minus sign right here, so minus 6. Okay, next step, exponents. So I'm finished with my bracket, I'm finished with my parentheses. The next step is this exponent, okay? 4 to the second power, of course, means 4 times 4, or 16. Okay, so I just solved that one. I'm going to bring down the rest. 1/2 times 16 minus 6. Think you can finish it off from here? Yeah, okay. So 1/2 times 16. 1/2 times 16, since multiplication is next, you would have 1/2 times 16 over 1, which is the same thing as 16 halves, or 16 divided by 2 is 8. And of course, 8, you still have to bring down the minus 6 part here. 8 minus 6, our final answer is 2. Final answer is 2. Yes, if you got this before I did, wow, look at all those steps. Destiny, you are rocking it, girl. Thank you so much. Yes, you're exactly right. Someone said, hey, it's just like the other ones, but with more steps. Yes, and as long as you know which step is first, you're going to continue to break it down. Yeah, see, more steps, so it takes a little more whiteboard space, but you just have to take it one step at a time to continue to break it down. Okay, let's see. I'm looking for another one that has lots of stuff in it. That's not too terribly obnoxious. Oh yeah, this was a good one. Let's do this one. Okay. Next problem. And I think this will be the last one we solve just with multiple steps, just so you don't get freaked out by all the steps. It's fine. Okay, this one's not terrible. This one's pretty terrible. Okay, we'll do this one. How about 8.7 plus 3.3, and that's in parentheses, times, here we go, another parentheses, 1/2 to the second power. Okay, so 8.7 plus 3.3 times 1/2 to the second power. Oh, someone says that one's not as difficult as the other one. That's true. No, that's not a Z. That's a very messy too. There, better? Okay, you do your steps and we'll walk through some more together. Or this one, we'll finish it up together. Andrew, are you already finished? Ooh, yeah, I'm getting some answers. Anya, Isabella, you guys are doing well. Oh yeah, Ian, thank you very much. I see your whiteboard. You're good. Yes, everyone else who's in there, you're good to go. Just got to remember all those rules. Parentheses first. Here's some parentheses. If you add these together, you get, what was that? Oh, you get 12. Okay, so 8.7 plus 3.3 is 12. And then times 1/2 to the second power. Okay, that 1/2 to the second power. Remember, this exponent goes to everything inside of the parentheses, everything inside the parentheses. So you have to take 1/2 times 1/2, which equals 1/4. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4. So if you bring down this 12 times 4, or 12 times the 1/4, 12 times the 1/4, 12 is the same thing as saying 12 over 1. So 12 times 1 is 12, and 1 times 4 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay, you're right. That one was not as difficult as the one before it. But throwing some decimals at you and some fractions at you, a little bit of everything. So do you think you're ready for the challenging questions today? That's what I want to know. You can nod your head yes or no if you think you're ready for the more challenging ones. Some people say yes, some people say no, some people say, I don't know. I'll tell you what we're going to do.
Should have had a math teacher like you growing up. I could have been a physicist or not. But I do enjoy the math. It's pretty funny, and I know it's sort of taboo to say this, but I really didn't enjoy learning until I got out of school. Or, you know, in college I had like more of an appreciation for it, but it wasn't really until I graduated that that I was able to sort of put some of those skills to work, and you know, just have time to think about it on my own. And so yeah, it's a process, but it's a process. Okay, cool. Let's talk about writing, shall we? All right, we are going to continue discussing our writing of an autobiographical incident. So I know there's going to be some questions about the comic, and the comic is meant, we're going to have fun with that. I'm going to give you a due date on that, and it doesn't have to be exceptionally long. More than anything, I want you to have fun with it, and I want you just to focus on goal, activity, and complication. I thought about it, and I really did. I just threw way too much at you in a short amount of time. So I figure we all know basic story structure, but goal, activity, complication is going to get us through. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. And here we are. Here's today's code. So we're going to do a little bit of review. We're going to kind of backtrack. Like sometimes I start to burrow into these types of assignments and have my agenda, but a lot of times I forget to go back and discuss, well, why are we doing what we're doing? And today I want to just review, just briefly, just for a few minutes, sort of what are qualities of good writing. And on the screen, you have today's code, JMEXYU. So just please log into joinpd.com. Let's try to get those numbers up as quickly as we can so we can get in today's lesson and have some fun. And you know, if you don't think math is important, you don't like, you know, the thing that took me a while to learn about math is just math is literally everywhere. And I don't think that I had an appreciation for math until I started playing music and how crucial that is to the whole process. So yeah, and sometimes I still have trouble. I'm a bass player who has difficulty counting, so I'm the guy you want in your band. But it was cool. Speaking of, we're talking about an autobiographical incident. I spent some time over the weekend with a friend of mine who I've known since my freshman year of high school, and he's a singer songwriter. And he wanted me to come in and play some bass on a couple of tunes that he was recording. So that was a lot of fun. And there was one particular part of a song that has a jazz break, and I'm not a jazz player, so that was sort of challenging. But the counting, and then it was a waltz, so it was a little bit of a different time signature. So yeah, counting is important, not just in life, but those of you who are musicians and play, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, get started here in just a second. So we're going to take a look at, we looked at that Abigail Lalonde piece yesterday, Robert Smith and the Hormones. And I want to go back and we're going to talk about qualities of good writing. And I want to point a few things out about that piece. And then I'm going to structure, yesterday we talked about scenes, key people, main events, and what did you learn? And I'm going to structure scenes and key people today so you can get an idea of what that looks like. And that's why we're reviewing qualities of good writing today, because I think it's important for us to go back and review the basis for everything that we're doing, and then what I'm doing here on screen will hopefully make a little more sense to you. So we're talking about an autobiographical incident today. So let's review. So think of an embarrassing, this is sort of what we've been tasked with. And hopefully you did your graphic organizer, your circle map last night, just to kind of feel it out. The whole purpose of a circle map in this situation is just to brainstorm ideas. So it's not supposed to be a finished product, at least in terms of, oh, okay, well, I have it all done. It's literally just, it's you thinking out loud. So it's just getting ideas down in a central location. That's all a circle map is for us, at least in this context. So again, this event can be embarrassing, it can be inspiring, frightening, it can be all the above, but it should be an event that taught you something. So now over here on the right, you'll see we've got scenes, key people, main events, life lessons. So that vocabulary, when we're talking about it in context, now we're talking about setting. So that's sort of the scenes or where everything is taking place. Characters, the main events, that would be the plot of our story. And then the life lessons, that's going to be the theme. So you can see that the vocabulary, even though the vocabulary is slightly different, everything is the same. So as far as, you know, us discussing scenes, we're talking about the setting. Key people, of course, are the characters in our story. The events is the plot, or that's the sequence of events. And then the theme is the lessons that we learn. So every year, and I'm sure Mr. Mullen and Mrs. Digby and Mrs. Bragg will back this statement up. Every year, students have difficulty determining the difference between plot and theme. So just a real quick side note, plot is the sequence of events in your story. So it is the beginning, middle, and end. The theme is what your main character learns during the course of the story. So the plot is sort of an external thing. It's the beginning, middle, and end. It's everything that takes place like on the outside. And the theme is the lesson that the lesson that they learn. For some reason, and every year, I'm like, I do a horrible job of teaching that because it seems like my students struggle with that. But the plot is a sequence of events. So it's the beginning, middle, and end. It's all the exterior stuff. And the theme is what your main character learns during his or her journey. Okay, here's where you come in. So things to keep in mind. What are some keys to good writing? All year long, we've been talking about, these are some things that you need to do in order to be a good writer. So I want you to take just about 2 minutes and tell me, in your own words, what are some keys to good writing? So here is a chance for you to show me what you've learned so far this year. So take about 2 minutes. What are some keys to good writing? What are some keys? What are some keys to good writing? So we've talked pretty extensively about this through the year, but I want to go back and review because there's certain principles that the cool thing, we're being very intentional about what we're doing, and I try to be as focused as I can about the elements or characteristics of good writing. And I try to break those down as clearly and as simply as I can. The good news is, just like anything else, the more you do it, the more automatic it becomes. So a lot of the things that I'm walking you through right now, I'll be honest, I don't do anymore, and not because I'm too good or anything along those lines. It's just because the process is so ingrained, like all of the questions, all the things that we're going over now, it's just things that I've done thousands and thousands of times. So it's just sort of, these are all things that I try to do in my writing. And a lot of that had to do with years ago when, before I started teaching, I was a journalist, and it was for a small newspaper. So at the minimum, I was writing between 3,000 to 5,000 words a day. And when you do that over a period of time, like I said, and writing for a newspaper, it's very time sensitive. So you don't have time to go, well, I'm a little concerned about this word or that word. Those are all conversations that you have, but you simply don't have the time to think too much about it. And then you'll read your story in the newspaper, and then all the flaws become readily apparent. So, and then you say to yourself, well, next time I'm not going to do that. So let's take a look at some of these responses. Okay, details, beginning, middle, end, have a hook. Okay, good. Include organizing the sequences of events for your story. I do it all the time. And with doing that, if you mix it up a little, it could be a funny story. At least that's what I do. Good. Dialogue, full sentences, great punctuation, and spell as best you can. Yeah, fortunately, we live in a time and age where the spelling and a lot of the spelling, if you've got a little red line under the word, whatever you're typing, you know you've misspelled it. So, and then all you have to do is click it and it'll correct the spelling for you. Organize your writing or using structure. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, you'd be surprised. Don't stick on one topic, try some new ones. Okay, add some interesting facts, or if it's about yourself, write something embarrassing. Everyone likes reading things like that. They do. They do. It's just really just being honest. A key to good writing is a well-structured essay. Outstanding. Yeah, I know I harp on it all the time. You guys probably get sick of hearing it, but structure is so, so important. You need to have a well thought out conclusion. You need to organize your thoughts and ideas. You also need to have good transition words or phrases to move the script along. And of course, a good hook to draw the reader in. Another key is to have good grammar and spelling. Wow, whoever wrote that, I think you should be teaching writing. It's good stuff. Good plot, big events, obstacles, characters, dialogue, voice, structure. Structure is very important. Good. Details, conclusion, structure, interesting topic, being inventive and imaginable or imaginative. Good, good, good. All right, this is all good stuff. You guys are right on target. So here's some of the things that I came up with. So in everything that you had, just to be clear, all of those responses I read, absolutely, those things were 100% on target. Number one, being clear. So if your writing is read and understood, you have done your job as a writer, fundamentally. So being clear is your number one responsibility as a writer. So I know I haven't talked about this much, but having one idea per sentence, and that sort of ties into being clear. If you start to address more than one idea in a sentence, things are going to get muddy quickly. And I'm going to point some things out about that Abigail Lalonde piece that we were talking about yesterday, and I'll show you what I mean. Strong verbs. Strong verbs are crucial because writing is two-dimensional. It's you, it's the page, and all of the ideas, all of the things that you're visualizing, you are having to make sense of in your head. Strong verbs are equivalent to creating movement in a story. So when we talk about visualizing what we're reading, strong verbs help you do that. And then, of course, using the five senses as well. So when we are reading something, when we're watching a program, we're watching a movie, or we're watching a play, or we're watching a television program, we get intellectually, we get a little lazy, because the cinematographers, the director, the writer, all those people who are involved in an enterprise like that are creating the image for you. So all you have to do is sort of passively sit back and then just take it in. But when you're reading a book, you have to, as a writer, you have to literally spell everything out for your reader. And how do we do that? Well, you want to create something using strong verbs and using as many of the five senses as you can. So that is all crucial stuff. Okay. So, but what you all came up with on the previous slide, that pleases me to no end. It tells me that you guys are really getting it. So let's go back real quick. So being clear, one idea per sentence, strong verbs, using the five sentences. I want to go back and read this and we'll see what we get. So her bedroom was in the basement. Okay, simple sentence. 4 straight walls assembled for her older brother who had moved out. So she took it. Right? So already we don't have terribly complex sentences. They're simple, and we know that we're in this bedroom basement. DIY 80s basement bedrooms are generally windowless, as was this one. I also had a windowless room. What was once a skylight gave way to a sealed ceiling with a new roof that no longer leaked curse words from my father's mouth with every rainstorm. Sure, probably unsafe, but like most of the 80s, no one questioned it. So this is a device here when we talk about using simple sentences or one idea per sentence. Here we go. We didn't wear helmets. We didn't wear seatbelts. And we didn't question fire exit strategies. I find that sentence hilarious, by the way, but I won't get into explaining why. But in fact, we relished in the ability to darken our rooms to nothing. So the author here, so Abigail Lalonde, she's not using terribly difficult, she's keeping it to one idea per sentence, but we know exactly where we're at. We're in this windowless basement bedroom. Now, so of course, there's always a critic. Could we add some more detail about what that windowless room looks like? Sure, absolutely. So is this piece perfect? Nope. I'm not sure which one of us discovered The Cure first, probably her, but we both had the older brother influence, plus I had MTV. For those of you who don't know, MTV is short for music television, and it was created in 1980, and they used to show music videos, and it was a big deal. Like when I was growing up, you would wait for your favorite band to come out with a video, and it would be shown on MTV, and it was magical. We had been through many musical phases together, the whatever your parents listened to phase, the teeny bopper boy band, mall girl phase, the learn your roots classic rock phase, etc. But we settled on the music that made us feel something the most. And then we never left. So you also might see here, oh, but Mr. Hartman, this person created a sentence that begins with the word and I've been told never to begin a sentence with the word and. Well, let me put it this way. When you start a sentence with but or and, which in journalism is not a big deal, they do it all the time. Nobody's really going to say anything because it's your English teacher will, but there is a difference between people who are more competent writers. She obviously did this for effect. And then we never left. So it's a short declarative sentence that lets the reader know this was our thing. So I want to come here. All right. So what I'm going to do now is like we talked yesterday, or I should say I talked about the sort of the silly sort of where did it go? Did I put it in there? Autobiography 2. I thought, all right, sorry, it's going to take a second to come up here because just being really slow. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through just two parts of what I'm setting up here. So those keys, sort of those keys to good writing, there I want to talk about here. So the deadly sponge, where does that take place? So this takes place in Hook. Whoa, that's mighty big text. So scenes, Hook Junior High School. I believe that was 1982. Woohoo! 1982. Man, I used to take a covered wagon to school. It's crazy. All right, don't do that. Let's see, what does that classroom look like? So we had a lot of 80s clothing. What did that classroom look like? So I might have to go over here to people. So big ninth graders. So like I said, it was a class that I had a number of, I was the only seventh grader in this particular reading class. And I remember, okay, so check this out. Back in the day, when all of us teachers were in school, they had this thing called corporal punishment. So what is corporal punishment? Well, basically, if you were a knucklehead and you were doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing in school, your principal could literally smack you with a paddle, which sounds hilarious now, but it was a thing. And like when I was in middle school, I had he was the superintendent for our Victor Elementary School District for 24 years, I believe, but Dr. Baker. And in fact, RB 21, the school in our district, is named after him. He was my middle school principal. And I would watch these ninth graders with like mustaches and beards, and they would low key drive to school in middle school. And they would come out of his office in tears because he had this huge paddle and had these holes in it. And if you did something that was over the top, you would literally get spanked by your principal. So, but I remember some of these ninth graders coming out of that office and just in tears, but I'm like, man, these guys have mustaches and stuff. It's crazy. And then of course, big ninth graders, that was one. So there were two guys who I was particularly like fascinated with. So Winfred and Terrence. And there was Haley. We won't mention her last name, but she was cute. So big ninth graders, Winfred and Terrence, Haley. So Winfred and Terrence. So what are some adjectives that I could use to describe them? Bearded, that threw me. I'm here in a class with bearded middle school students. That was weird. Bearded, they were big. Muscular. And probably like well-dressed by 80s standards. Now you would be like, wow, what's with the throwback video? Haley, so big hair was a thing in the 80s, ladies. Styled, big hair, well, bouffant. There's a good word, bouffant. There's a word that needs to make a comeback. If you're not sure what that means, Google it. But it's synonymous with big hair. And how did she dress? So she was more new wave. See, here's another thing about middle school in the 80s. Like, things are so different now. When I talk to people, they, like, you were sort of defined, and I don't know, maybe Mrs. Digby and Mrs. Bragg and Mr. Mullen had sort of different experiences. But coming to school, like growing up in the high desert, basically, you were sort of categorized by the music that you listened to. So it was weird. It wasn't so much like all these other things. It was like one of the first questions that you asked was, well, what kind of music do you listen to? And then all of these other social groups were generally arranged around like music. It was a big deal. It was just weird to me. But the music that you listen to was such a big part of your identity that that it was hard to ignore. So at any rate, so we got big ninth graders in that classroom: Winfred and Terrence, bearded, muscular, well dressed. And then Haley, who, truth be told, had a crush on her, big hair, bouffant. She was kind of a new wave type girl. So kind of Madonna-esque when that was actually a thing. So scenes, 80 clothing. So the classroom, what did the classroom look like? So we had paper everywhere. She was a good teacher, but she was not very organized. Desks haphazardly arranged around the room. I do remember that. Everyone, for this particular thing, everyone was out of their seat. Okay, cool. So that's it. So that's giving me now I just want to talk about two more things and then I'll be quiet. But scenes are important. And this is something that I've had conversations with mentors of mine. And when we talk about setting, in this case, scenes, it is super important to create a sense of place. So when you're grabbing the reader's attention, so we know when we do that with a hook, early in a story, especially like a story like this one, an autobiographical incident, you want to make sure that you are creating a sense of place. So you are picking up a reader and dropping them in a specific time and place. And the more descriptive you are, the stronger your verbs, the clearer you are about where you're at and setting that scene, the more your reader is going to be invested. And so in this case, sort of like Stranger Things, it's set in the 1980s. But all of the clothes, and I will say this about Stranger Things, like the costuming, and they really nail sort of that whole time period in terms of the feel and the clothes and kind of the things that we did back then. But when you watch it, you're very much, to me, there was a nostalgia factor there because it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. So, but the setting is almost as important to your story as any of the other things, the plot or the characters. It's, you really need to establish that sense of place. So you need to transport your reader there. And then, of course, the key people, I want to use the five senses. So what do these people look like? How am I going to describe them? Winfred and Terrence, they were big, imposing guys. And I mean, I wasn't a small seventh grader either. I think in seventh grade, I was, I want to say just under 6 feet tall. and then and these guys were even taller and bigger than I was, and so that was wild to me. But all of those characters that are taking place here, you know, I really want to have an idea of what they look like, how they move, how they sound, because when I start telling this story, it's important for my readers to see those little nuances and those details and all of that. So at any rate, that is it. That is it for today. It is 10 o'clock. So no homework for tonight. I'm going to finish going over this this sort of tree map tomorrow, and then let's see. So tomorrow, today is, what is today? Tuesday? Yeah. So Thursday you will have. I'm going to have you complete this, and then we'll start actually doing the writing next week. So there's a couple other things that I want to go over, but that's it for today. So sorry guys, I hate these kinds of things when I'm just talking nonstop, because I know it's a drag and wish we could do it in person, but it is what it is. So anyway, that's it guys. That's it for this morning. So go ahead and take a break.
I want to share my screen with you. Okay, good job. And on your computers, you're going to see a code that you need to enter in that we may use the Pear Deck HDM AKW. As you join in, after we get a certain critical mass, we'll begin our last set. When we reach 90 students, we'll begin.
So those of you who are logging into Mr. Mullins' reading lesson, we talk about structure and writing all the time, and I know he's going to talk a little bit about that today. But what he's talking to you about today is extremely important, super practical, and so yeah, I would make sure that you're tuned in for this because it's good stuff. It's very good stuff. So make sure you're clued in.
We're almost there. 83 students, 7 more students, and we're starting. Well, it seems like 90 was kind of ambitious for us.
Sorry.
Oh, 86. Yeah. Sorry. What do you do?
Come on, guys.
Let's get there. Well, guys, we're gonna finish our reading of The Fire on the Mountain, which is that Ethiopian folktale. Wonderful story, and shows a lot about how lessons that characters learn can be reflected, can be absorbed, can be enjoyed by different cultures, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful story. Today, we're going to talk about, just like Mr. Hartman, we're going to talk about theme. And we're going to work a little bit with theme at the beginning, and then we're going to go from that into a form of reciting evidence for something that you believe about writing. Today, the third day of reading a book is always a writing day. Now, Mr. Hartman, I always learn something from you, but theme is what the text is about in one word or a short phrase. It often reflects a value that we have as a people or what we learn through our experience. And that's important, see, because experience is the chief way of how we learn. More than any other way, we learn by experience. You think about how your little brothers, I'm talking about the ones that are tiny, how they learn. I remember when it was before kindergarten, one time my mom was ironing some shirts and she propped up the iron. I don't know if you guys know what an iron is, but it takes out the wrinkles, and it's extremely hot. And she told me, she said, don't touch this because it's hot. And, I was like 3 or 4, and I remember as soon as she left the room, first thing I did was I touched that iron. And of course I screamed, she came in, and, but I learned something. And I learned it because I experienced the pain of that heat. And experience is something that we learn through over and over and over again. And so oftentimes, this is the wonderful thing about narrative. It tells us of an experience that has a lesson to impart. And sometimes that lesson can be caught up or captured in just one word. And sometimes it's a phrase or a very, very short sentence, but that is what theme is. In informative texts, we usually talk about what is the big idea or the main idea. Here, kind of like on the other side, the opposite side, the thing that mirrors the big idea is the theme. Well, theme on the Fire of the Mountain. What do you think the theme might be for the story Fire on the Mountain? I want you to write it down below. Go ahead, write it, put it in, and then we're going to share with one another. What do you think the theme was? Thinking about what Mr. Hartman spoke about theme, something that we learn, what they want us to learn, or what experience do you think they want us to take with them? Okay. Go ahead and write that, and then we'll share them with one another in just a second. You have 1 minute. All I need is really a theme, and remember, it is either it can be one word, or it can be a short phrase, or even a short sentence. About 30 seconds. Well, let's look at them together and see what we have. Maybe like 1400s. I don't understand that one. A lowly peasant and his dream. Okay. A folktale, that's the genre. Okay. A warm village. This one down here comes close to what we might think a theme would be. How something you don't have can benefit you in many different ways. Okay, good. You can accomplish anything. Good job, Aaron. That could be a theme. About staying on a cold mountain. That's kind of, we're talking about the plot, aren't we? Remember when Mr. Hartman talked about the difference between plot and theme? Plot is all about what happens. Theme is what it's about. So, you know, if we're going to say that this happened, he stayed on top of a cold mountain, the theme might be survival, wouldn't it? Or keeping warm. Do not tell people a bet and then don't fulfill it. Good. I like that. That could be a theme. Okay, here's the lesson. Even without something you need, you can still accomplish what you want to. You can still accomplish what you want to accomplish. How a servant got what he wanted. A poor boy's dream. Okay, so I think we need a little bit more work on what theme is, and we'll be doing that more and more as time goes by. Anything is possible if you set your mind to it, right? If I was to give a theme, an answer for that question, I think it might come down to one word for me. But I think it's possible that a story can have more than one theme. And Mr. Hartman, you'd have to elaborate on that, I think. But I think it's possible for them to have more than one theme. It's also possible that we might disagree on what the theme is on a certain story. And that's because we're different people. And as we read things, we bring our experience to bear upon the text. The text speaks to us differently from the person sitting next to us. But for me, and I think one possibility for Fire on the Mountain for a theme, it would be the word justice. Well, below, what I want you to do is I want you to write, because we're going to use this idea of justice for a few minutes. And I want you to write down below and tell me what you think justice is. Okay, and again, I'll give you 1 minute. What is justice? Justice is a word that's very, very popular right now. It's a word that's very, very important. It's one of those life issues that every culture talks about and has to deal with. What is justice? Different people have different interpretations of what justice might be. Different countries have different ways of bringing justice into a society. But what is it exactly? Let's go ahead and let's look and see how we're doing. Justice to me means freedom, peace, glory, and success. Okay? Karma for the bad. You know, that's hitting really close, but what about for the good? You're only talking about one half of it, aren't you? Okay, justice is hoping a dream will come true. I think justice is treating everyone equally and being fair to others. Okay. I've always thought justice means victory and success, but I know that there's somebody talking about their idea being changed, that it means, I like this, being able to see people think, being just and fair. I think good. Justice is fairness and equality. I like that. I think justice is freedom for all. Okay. I think justice is when a person wins, or where a person wins. For me, justice is freedom. Karma for bad and good. It's interesting that we keep on using the word karma. Justice is accomplishing a good thing. I think justice means freedom, equality, and fairness. Those are good. I like how we're thinking. I think karma, the idea of karma means that you get what you deserve. Okay? If you do good, you get good. If you do bad, you're going to get bad. And I think that's an overarching idea of what justice might be. I think justice is getting what you deserve. And in its most simple definition, that's really a simple definition. So, like I said, every third day that we read, go over a story, we're going to write, okay? And the question today revolves around the theme. First, for instance, the first question we're going to look at is, how did Abdul get justice? Now, Abdul gets justice in a very, very positive sense. But how did the merchant get justice? Because this is something we don't usually think of. But he got justice too. And what did it mean to him? And how were they different from one another? We're going to look at both of these two questions, and we're going to write about them. So one way that we, whenever we have to take a position and we have to present evidence for our position, we want to use what is called RICE. And RICE is a way, it's just an acronym that tells us how we would respond in our writing or in our presenting. And the first one, the R stands for restate. Restate your position or take a position. Say something, okay? Take a stand. The I stands for introduce the citation or quote, because you're going to go into the article, you're going to go into the story, and you're going to pull out something which is said in that article or that story that you want to use as evidence. To introduce it, you have to say in the article or in the story, such and such, it says, okay? It's very formulaic, at least for now. And then what you do is you write the quote down, you cite the quote, okay? You take the very thing that's said in the article and you write it down. And you must have, when you do this part, you must have, if you're taking it word for word out of the article, out of the story, you have to have quotation marks. Then that's the C, cite the quote. Then the E in RICE means explain the quote, or I well, quote. Explain the quote, or almost restate it in your own words, okay? So here's the question. How did Abdul get justice? And the answer is found on page 16, which is actually the last page of the story. If I was using Rice, I might start out with this very phrase. Abdul received justice when? And then I would go through the Rice, right? That is my R in the Rice. Okay, here's the place in the story where the evidence is that he truly received justice. So let's read it. Read along with me. The hungry guest nodded in agreement. The merchant never thought he would have to pay for his bet, but he realized that he had no choice. He stood up and spoke to the group. Abdul will have his bakery, he said. Now, can we finally eat? The guests cheered. The food was brought in and the feast began. Okay? So, looking here in this text, can you find a quote? You can find a sentence that gives evidence that Abdul received justice. Well, how did Abdul receive justice, get justice? So if I was to do Rice, I would do it something like this for the first question. Abdul received justice when the merchant paid the bet. On page 16 in the story, Fire on the Mountain, see, here's where I'm restating my position. Abdul received justice when the merchant paid the bet. There's the R. Then introduce the quote. On page 16 in the story, Fire on the Mountain, there's the I, the first half of this sentence. I'm introducing a quote, telling where it is, telling what the story's name is, the title. Then I cite the quote. The merchant says, Abdul will have his bakery. Notice quotation marks before and after. Then the last one is explain the quote. If justice is about getting what you deserve, then in the end, Abdul was treated justly. Okay? And there's my Rice. How many sentences are in here? Just to take a stand, to introduce a quote, to cite the quote, to explain the quote. How many sentences are here? 3. Because the I and the C we combine together in one sentence. Now you could do this differently. You could do 4 sentences. You could add more information to the E where you explain the quote. Okay? You could even have more than one sentence in the quote. But you cannot have less than, and do a good job without doing run-on sentences or having something awkward. You could not do less than 3 sentences. 3 sentences is what I would look for. If you had 4, as long as it was done well, that would be okay too. Okay, question, let's use Rice. How did the merchant get justice? Well, I'm going to start out the same. The merchant received justice. You see, that's me restating my position. The merchant received justice when? And again, we're on page 16. So let's read it. The hungry guest nodded in agreement. The merchant never thought he would have to pay for his bet, but he realized that he had no choice. He stood up and spoke to the group. Abdul will have his bakery, he said. Now we can finally eat. The guests cheered. The food was brought in, and the feast began. Here also, the merchant got his justice, just like Abdul did. Can you see how? If you were going to take a quote from here to give evidence that the merchant received justice, what would you choose? Well, Rice review. Restate your position. That's one sentence. Introduce the citation or quote. That's the beginning of the second question. Cite the quote. That's the end of the second sentence. And explain the quote. Gosh, that drives me crazy. Okay, you're going to use this, right? Okay, now I'm going to stop sharing with you. I'm pretty sure. On your Google Zoom, on your Google Classroom, there is a posting there that's called Fire on the Mountain. And it is, maybe I can pull it up and I can show it to you, but it is a Google document. And all I want you to do is take that Google document and answer the last question we had. How many sentences is that? That's like 3 sentences, 4 if you want, okay, depending on what you choose. But you're going to answer the question, how did the merchant get justice? Okay? It's shared with you. It's in Google Classroom. Go to there now, pull it up, and let's do it right now. Okay, guys, that's due today. Okay. You also tomorrow will be having a vocabulary test. So when you get done with doing your 3 sentences, your Rice, for how did the merchant get justice, then what you should do is you should go review on Quizlet those words. Okay. We have about 19 minutes until it's 11 o'clock. So you have some time to work on this today. Okay. So get those done today.
Yep. Mr. Mullen, thank you. That was fantastic. Basically a second writing lesson today too. And guys, no, it was perfect. And just so you know, everybody, when you're the beauty of Rice and structuring your responses this way is when you write, knowing your audience is very important. So when you guys take the test that we take at the end of the year, like you are not going to have to take nearly as many tests as you do when you're in 5th grade. But we just take the language arts and math portions of the test in 6th grade. We have short answer response. And when you look at the scoring guide or the rubric for how you're scored on those short answer responses, if you just follow the Rice format, you're going to be fine. Because that, when you just look down the line of everything that you're scored on for those short answer responses on the test, if you just follow the Rice format, you're going to do fine because it takes care of all of those things for you. So really all you have to do is follow that structure and you'll be fine. So
I agree with you guys. I think that to answer the question, how did the merchant get justice? It's much harder than answering how did Abdul get justice. But I like what Daryl said in the chat. He goes, he got his justice when he got his meal. I think that's right. He got what he deserved. And you know, that's what you just have to ask. He got what he deserved, didn't he? So like I said, it's on page 16. Other people can have, there's one other answer you can have, right? And it also is on 16, but I think that's a good point by Daryl. The Rice assignment is called Same, Fire on the Mountain. No? Am I wrong, Mrs. Davy?